Hi, who are you?
Hi, who are you? I've watched that a lot of times. I'm Anjan. I'm the founder of Daylight Computer. And believe it or not, watching, hi, who are you? Hi, who are you? Hi, who are you? Over and over again. I used to binge watch Charbax videos. Actually played a key role in kickstarting me in this project to make a very fast e-paper computer. The goal is to sort of make healthier, distraction-free computers. And a Charbax video was actually what got me going.
That's so awesome to hear that and to meet you here at the conference. I've been doing videos about these sunlight readable displays for a decade and a half, maybe even longer.
Yeah.
Right? And there's all these technologies have come and gone, and I've always wanted to see what can LCD do to make it better. And you found a solution, right?
Yeah, so the basic premise is I was trying all sorts of e-ink displays. My goal was to sort of have an eye strain-free display that you can use outside, you can use at nighttime, it doesn't hurt your eyes, it doesn't mess up your circadian rhythm. I sort of realized my limit to productivity and computing would never exceed the limit imposed onto me by the health difficulties of a computer. To put that very literally, if your eyes really hurt, you're not gonna finish reading the paper, right? If your sleep is screwed up so you don't sleep well and the next day you're sleep deprived, you don't understand what you're reading. If you're always indoors and your vitamin D levels are low and you're depressed, I have seasonal affective disorder, like your mind doesn't work well when you're depressed, right? And so I realized the point of a computer is to sort of augment your cognition. It's got to start with the health. And I was like, Kindle is healthy. Use it outside. It doesn't hurt your eyes. Use it at nighttime. But it's so damn slow.
It's frustrating. Like that's also an issue sometimes if you can't get to do what you want to do because there's some display lag.
Yes.
That can be a problem too.
Yes, and if you use it as a monitor, just the lag of moving the mouse or the lag of the key, even if they do it, they dither it, they try to make the letters big, they make it totally black and white. There's no grayscale at all. That's why they dither. The text doesn't look good anymore. They don't even have anti-aliasing. And I want this because it's eye strain free, it's nice to read text, but it's no longer good to read text. I tried every Daysung, I tried every Boyu, I tried every books. Yes, I tried every Sony. There was so many different e-ink things I tried, and they just none of them were good enough.
We love e-ink, let's say. To be honest, we love e-ink.
Everything I'm doing is a love letter to e-ink. It's so good. I still love my Kindle. It's still really good if you want a static image. There's so many applications if you're reading fiction or books. But I wanted to e-inkify everything. I want to do read papers and PDFs and Google Docs and Notion and browser and Substacks and newsletters and blogs and Excel and emails and Airtable. There's just so many knowledge work utilities.
Research papers.
I do, research papers. Google Scholar, AI tools now, right? I mean, obviously that didn't exist back then. There's so many things that are sort of fine in black and white. And if you can have enough speed, you can handle a browser, you can handle third-party apps, you can handle animations and transitions and gestures and touch interactions.
Let's see your screen for a second while you keep talking, because I'm sure some people want to see the screen also while you.
I'm teasing, so I'll say the last sentence. I'll show the screen. So basically, I was just I want to Kindleify more of my life. I don't think I need color. The two things I need is I need grayscale, and I need fast refresh rate, right? And grayscale is more subtle, but fast refresh, everybody knows that. And so basically, I was watching Charbax videos looking for e-paper displays. And that's when I found clear ink displays, and that's when I found the electrowetting displays. And it's a longer story that I can get into, so I'll show the display
also
first.
all the other ones, right?
Yes.
You saw my Pixel Chi videos.
Yes, I saw your Pixel Cheese. I saw your Bodal videos.
That was in 2009, 2010. It's been for a while.
It's a long time, yeah.
Liqua Vista.
Liqua Vista, yeah. Amazon bought them.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a bunch more.
Yeah.
There's other kind of reflective LCDs.
Mirasol. Do you remember Mirasol?
Mirasol.
They're in the Garmin.
The Qualcomm guys?
Yes, the Qualcomm guys, exactly.
There's been some attempts at doing all kinds of stuff.
JDI, reflective LCDs. You had, I think, video on that. Konica Minolta also even had some videos. Cholesteric.
There was CHLCD.
Cholesteric. That's what I'm saying.
Cholesteric.
Yes.
And there's been the different frustrating ways it's been done where you kind of lose everything you write.
Yes.
If it's not recorded.
Yes. And then you had the Kent displays, the cheap Cholesteric one. The
and
boogie
they have
boards.
Found ways to record a little bit, right? Maybe it's not. I don't know how.
The resolution's not good. It's it's difficult to work with. If you put your hand on it, the pressure. It's amazing stuff, but none of it is sort of good enough to be a daily driver. And so basically, long story short, through some of the people I met through Charbax's videos, I emailed all of them, I met them, talked to them, I read the papers, came to conferences, I flew out to Japan, I flew out to Taiwan, I flew out to Korea, I flew out to the Netherlands. I started to learn there's actually some ways that certain material science technologies have gotten good enough, you can actually make e-paper displays, reflective LCDs, finally paper-like enough, wide viewing angle enough, and high enough refresh rate that they can actually solve the problem of good grayscale, high refresh rate e-paper. You know, not EPD, not technically e-ink, but e-paper as a category, something that's reflective and, you know, blocks black light and reflects the light to create white.
So I've always been a huge fan of the Marie-Lou Jepsen's Pixel Chi.
Yes.
Since the first day.
She told me not to work on this.
The one laptop per child is why I started video blogging a little bit.
No way.
A little bit.
What?
But it's
Are you
one
serious?
of the, it's 2005.
Oh my God.
I was at the
It's a small world.
IT world, I forgot what it's called, IT, there was Nicolas Negroponte, and I was a little bit too nervous to go and interview him there because he's like such an amazing guy.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's transflective, isn't it?
Yes. So this is also transflective. You can think of this as Pixel Chi with a decade of improvement. Right. At all layers of the stack.
That's awesome.
Things have improved.
Everything has been improved on
Every
Pixel Chi.
single thing has been improved. Yes.
Everything.
Yes.
So it's a
From
better
parallax
Pixel Chi.
to blur to resolution to refresh rate to bit depth to viewing angle to reflectance ratio, contrast ratio, every single thing. Obviously, we don't have color, but we chose to do that on purpose because color would be way too dark. And I actually want people to use it in the purely reflective mode, not just always with, you know, some backlight.
There's advantage to do black and white.
Yes, because you don't have a Bayer filter, you gain back, you know, 2/3 of the brightness. So it actually turns out, so the key insight was like, okay, clear ink is not ready, electrowetting's not ready, plasmonic resonance is not ready. I tried all this stuff. I read Shinsan Wu's work on e-paper displays. So I learned, and I was like, wait, if you do a back of the envelope calculation, actually brightness is perceived logarithmically by the human eye. It's called L star. So the difference between 1% of light reflected and 2% does not look like double. It looks like much more than that. The difference between 30% light reflected versus 60%, it seems like it's double, but it actually only feels like 30% difference. I'm roughly saying the numbers because the curve is logarithmic. So the difference in the beginning is a lot, and the difference as you get higher and higher levels of reflectance, how many photons hit, how many photons go out and come into your eyes, becomes less and less of a difference. So paper is 60%. Traditional EPD is like 35 to 42%. And I learned if reflective LCD could be 25 to 30%, you start to get into the turning inflection point of the logarithmic curve such that 27% reflective LCD looks in majority of realistic lighting environments looks very similar to 35%, 40% EPD. And that was the aha. And the way you can get reflective LCD, diffuse, not specular, I can explain later what that means. The way you get that to be over 25% is you remove the color filter. And no one had looked at reflective LCDs as a black and white thing. No one looked at it in terms of all of the little changes you can make across all the films and the glasses and the liquid crystal design, reflector design, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Because color filters are awesome, but they are in front of your, they are like a barrier between your eyes and the display, and they take away brightness, blah, blah, blah.
Yes, because you put 100% of the light through a red subpixel in a color filter, and the only light that goes through is the red light. So all blue light and all green light is lost. Therefore, 66% of light is lost. I'm sort of roughly describing it. But that's why a color filter would drop 66% of the light.
That's kind of like the Kaleido.
That's why Kaleido is so dark. Exactly. So if you use a Kaleido product, you always have to use a front light. And my feeling is like, you don't want to always be using a front light or backlight.
Front light is cool, but how is backlight different? And how, especially if you can do transflective.
Yes.
Is that like the holy grail, especially for LCD?
Well, okay, so the analogy here is the Game Boy Advanced SP actually came in two modes. There was a front light mode, and it was a color reflective LCD, and then there was a backlight mode. And it turns out, if you look at the resale market, the backlight ones are all more expensive than the front light ones. because the backlight ones looked a lot better than the front light ones. Now, front lights have improved since then, but the main reason still stands, and the main reason they like the backlight ones more is it preserves contrast better. Because front light, when it comes, it hits every single part of the display. So front light hitting the white part of the display, the white pixel, let's say we got some text, you got some white and some black, you want it to hit the white part, right? Because that's what creates a white state. But if the light hits the black part and reflects, then it looks gray, it doesn't look black. Because black means light is absorbed. And contrast is defined by how black is your black and how white is your white. So when you have transflective, the light is blocked completely in your black pixels and only comes through your white pixels. And so there's something called bloom, right? This is why LCDs don't have perfect blacks, is there is some light bleed. But that bloom, the LCD bloom, the little light bleed, is way less than the front light hitting all of the black pixels. And so the higher contrast, the better black states you get with a backlight, which is what transflective is why in some ways it is superior than a front light. There's a couple reasons also is you can play around with LEDs because you have much more space with a backlight. With a front light, because it's very thin and on the top, you don't have much space to play around with interesting LEDs. So everybody uses the same set of LEDs. So we created custom LEDs with custom spectrums. That's possible because we had a little more space and flexibility.
And it's always interesting to figure out how a backlight might affect the eyes positively or negatively, but you can just not to have too much of it, and then it's okay, right?
Exactly. So we do 3 things to make the backlight look better. One is the spectrum. We make it to be like sort of longer wavelengths, blue light free. The peak is like 630 nanometers. It's basically amber and orange. Maybe it's hard to see out here, but we can maybe walk a little bit or I'll show it to you. The second thing we do is there's no PWM, there's no flicker. So it's DC driven. And I think we totally underestimate the cognitive and physiological load on people from flicker. You can actually measure this. The temperature inside your nose will increase when you're using a flickering display versus a non-flickering display. It's because you're more stressed. And then the third thing is we then diffuse the light. So a backlight, if it's collimated, that's a bit unnatural. But if it's diffused, that's much more natural because nature light is mostly diffused. So that's the 3 things we do. And then we actually introduce a bit of speckle such that it doesn't feel, like basically there's a little bit extra layer of diffusion as well. So if you use our thing, you'll see a small amount of sparkle, which comes from the speckle. So,
is that also the coating kind of like the feeling
top,
of a
top
pen?
Surface. Yes.
Is that what it is?
Yes. Yeah.
And you chose something that really feels nice for the pen?
tuned it. So we tuned it to be really nice for the paper-like feel when you write. It feels like paper. It makes the sound when you write, like, not digital. That's a literal, actual physical sound. It also then is anti-glare. It stops things from glaring. It also has a nice touch feel. So when you try to scroll or scrub, it feels good. It also has nice optical transparency. It has to have the right durability characteristics. And then you have to have the right balance between speckle or sparkle or blur.
I guess it sounds like it would test a lot of different options.
We spent a lot of time. And it sounds so simple, right? Just a surface film. But you see how many variables there are. And it's very hard and difficult and slow to work with, manufacturers in Asia, especially Japan.
So one of the ultimate dreams I have for this kind of market is better collaboration and kind of like notepad replacement, and where you take notes in a meeting room and everybody can share the notes and stuff like that, and where it's really improving productivity, make it more fun to work in an environment where there's a lot of meetings or stuff.
Yes, yeah.
Are people doing that?
Not yet, but we want to. The way we think about it is let's nail single player first, and then once that's really good, then we can get multiplayer. There's an example I really like that's similar to this. I hope it captures the essence. Is when you go to let's say you're a professional musician and you go to play a gig. 20 musicians will sit down, violin, cello, viola, blah, blah, blah. Do you know how you get your music? The conductor at the front will then tell everybody, set your airdrop to everyone, and he'll sit and he'll look and tap on everybody's name, and he'll airdrop a PDF of the sheet music. And then they open in an app called Fourscore. But it's like what you're saying. They have an almost local mesh network of sharing content. How can Daylight make that amazing? Where our notes get shared, now AI can transcribe it, you can choose to share that. How to use it as a whiteboard. Let's say you're showing me a presentation. You previously used to print out PowerPoints, right? If you're in a sales meeting or finance meeting. What if you could just easily mesh network share it? So we want to figure out that stuff too. So we start by making paper digital. Then second, we want to make paper magical, add a lot of functionalities. And third, we want to make paper collaborative, where it can be shared between people.
Because if you find some interesting research or you want to analyze, I can imagine lawyers working together and working
Totally.
on
Yes.
taking notes, and you do this, you do that, I do that. The teacher and the students, the teacher is reviewing your papers and
Yes.
you in real time
Yes.
collaborating between students. There's so much potential in this thing being done correctly.
Yeah.
But Google Drive sharing docs is not quite.
Google Jamboard, there's
I
been
don't
so
know,
many attempts. Yeah.
There must be some cooler apps for this kind of stuff, right? But maybe it's just a question of the right app.
I think it's a question of the right experience. And so sometimes if you give somebody an app, it's not enough. They'll still end up using Notability or Good Notes or OneNote because that's where they keep the rest of their notes. It's easy. So I think if you can have the right app, the right sort of writing experience, and you have the right hardware, then you can buy into the entire idea. So we sort of think of this as like a Remarkable on steroids or Remarkable plus plus. Remarkable will never be able to do this because they don't have the hardware, they don't have the refresh rate. And so that's why we invented this, is we wanted to keep evolving these sort of magical paper technologies. And by magical paper, digital paper means you can download a PDF, you can put 100 PDFs, you can put 1,000 PDFs, you can put Google Docs. Magical paper means I write by hand and you get good handwriting recognition. But not the slow one that you get on a MyScript or that, but in real time. Magical paper means we have a button on the side of the tablet, regardless of where you are. We're still building it. You hold it down, and whatever's on your screen, sort of like Gemini, you can ask questions. That's pretty amazing. When you're reading a book, you don't know what the hell's going on. Instead of copying and pasting it, going to another tab, you stay there, you get a little UI that comes across, and then you just swipe it away. So you don't have any context switching. That to me is like the book or paper is alive. So I call that magical paper. Handwriting recognition, AI stuff, cool gestures. And the third thing is what you're saying, collaborative paper. If you read something, you highlight it, you annotate it. If you're an expert in that, I would love to read your stuff. What if I could subscribe? Some of the stuff you keep private, some of the stuff you keep public. So I think there's also very high quality sort of social networks that could emerge from this.
And Twitter X is fun or whatever, and Facebook, blah, blah, blah. And all these things, LinkedIn is very serious and stuff. But what about a social network of people actually analyzing, thinking about any books, any article, any research paper, and starting to like a community of people annotating the world
Yes.
and being able to see everybody else's
Yes.
notes.
Right.
But what is a UI for this?
Well, I don't think it's actually very complicated, and I think the secret is you start out very specific. So let me share a small example. It's like in the academic research community, when you're at universities, what people do is they'll read papers and then they will present it to their lab mates. And they use Mendeley or Zotero or this, say I'll share a Google Drive, everybody looks into it. This is a very easy place where if you're going to be reading papers, if whatever you do on it can easily share it to other people, that'd be super simple. Imagine I'm able to, pull down a menu. It says, hey, Andrew is sharing a document. Do you want to join? He said yes. And then I'm looking in real time here what he sees there. And if I highlight it here, it would show up from here. I could save a comment. If there's a citation, he can do it. Suddenly you have collaborative paper. And then if you're reading that stuff, you can sort of post the highlights, post the quotes. You can post the papers with a small comment. And it can be posted just to your internal lab group, or you can post it to your Twitter, like academic Twitter. And then over time, there's like a sort of daylight, research community thing. We'd probably open source it, be totally decentralized. Like our goal is not to make money on software, it's mostly to make money on hardware. If we're making money on software, it's voluntary. It's not because we're locking you in. So your question of what that could look like is, I think it would look like, it would sort of look like, Nuzzle. Do you remember Nuzzle?
Not sure.
Nuzzle was an app that would go through your Twitter feed and find the articles and links that the most people did. So your Nuzzle would be so the first thing in your Nuzzle, it would be a feed, would be like an article shared by 9 people on your Twitter. And it would have each of the comments each of those 9 people said. And so it's like a social newspaper. So imagine the same thing with papers or highlights or this, where you share it from all the people you follow. It can be your Twitter followers or this or that, but it filters it to only be this content that's good. And then because AI can now semantically tag it, is it biology, is it physiology, is it about displays, So you can choose what it is. And if you like the highlight, we'll make it easy where you can hit in and you'll find the actual source. They're called transclusions. And so we started on academics, then we would have one for finance people, we have one for crypto white paper people, we have some for gadget nerds and engineers. And you don't need a big social network for everybody. You can start it with interest groups. And then if there needs to get bigger, it can. But the goal is, instead of big social networks, how do you make it rich social networks?
Would it
around sharing this knowledge?
Include, for example,
you get
that
richer. You get, if I do academic research, you do academic research, you gain a lot if you can learn from my curations and annotations. If we're both investors and you're reading all this amazing stuff and you're an expert at oil trading, I will pay money. If I'm getting for free, that's amazing, to read your comments about oil news. This is bullshit. Everybody always says OPEC will do this. I, for 20 years, learned OPEC never does that. That's really insightful. So that, I think, is how
would it make sense that in this UI, that's, for example, you read a book, and then you can see all the annotations from anybody who wrote this book, who read this book.
Yes.
And maybe a way to rank the quality of the annotations.
Brilliant.
And in terms of
I like that a lot.
How they rank in terms of your taste or your opinions.
Right.
So you can find people that think like you or that think unlike you.
Yes.
And you can
I
start
like
to
that.
have arguments
I
about
like that.
any sentence in any book.
This is brilliant.
And maybe like a whole bunch of a community about,
I mean, that's amazing then, because then every book goes from being a monologue to a discussion. And every book goes from being the intelligence of one person, the author, to being the collective intelligence of everybody, right? And that's like, there's a movie called Everything is a Remix. It is our interpretation, it's adding our little perspective that truly makes like the world, the universe expand. So,
and another angle I'd like to speak about, you have to go, you have 5 minutes?
Let me just check. Yeah, I could have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so the other thing is, I'm a father since 3 weeks ago, and I'm thinking, thanks, that's cool.
For a lot of kids, congrats.
And I'm thinking the kids need to have something that's healthy for them, and that's not all this crap that the kids are looking at, but that's actually help them learn in a smart way with AI also, but AI that's respectful, that's like
privacy secure,
that's really helping them
not just
specialize
pandering
themselves in what they want to be specialized in.
Yes.
Do you think your tool will help with that?
We are 100% focused on that. Do you know the primer or primer from Diamond Age? It's the idea of a magical book that is there to help make a child endlessly explore the curiosity and learn whatever they want. That's the way I think about this, is it's a magic book or a magic textbook. We're truly reinventing paper. So you can sort of see
how cool it looks.
So whatever, it's like, a thing, but boom, look at that. Boom, look at that. So nice. It is the same speed.
2025 pixel chi.
Yes.
Right?
And I think that is a fair description. And you can write on it, I don't know where my stylus is. But yeah, look, you can write on it. Let's say you run out of space in the margins. Then one thing you can do is you can zoom in and we'll automatically resize the ink. And you can zoom in and you can automatically resize the ink.
And so I'd like the AI to understand your annotations a little bit and kind of like make sense of it.
And that would be, so our biggest market,
because some people annotate different ways, but they should understand what you're trying to say.
And so if you want your kid to play Khan Academy or Brilliant or Kindle or books or talk to an AI, you can go through these different apps and try it. It sort of is a healthier computer. Try doing Instagram, try doing TikTok, try doing video games on it. It doesn't work well. So I would be so happy if in a year or 2 or 3, your kid is using a Daylight as their main computer to learn and to play and read books and listen to things and draw. And
it's awesome to see that somebody cares about making this tool happen. Is this Gen 1?
Gen 1, yeah.
Gen 1.
Yes.
We don't know what you're gonna think about later.
Oh, we want to do a lot. But Alan Kay calls it the Dynabook, and Neil Stevenson calls it the primer in Diamond Age. But computing has waited 50 years to make what is like basically a magical digital book, piece of paper that's interactive, dynamic, relational, contextual, that then makes you the most curious, most like smart version of yourself. Computers today make you a dumb version of yourself. They make you a distracted version of yourself. They make you an uncurious version of yourself. And so that's the great hope of what we're doing. And this is just the
battery
first.
life can be pretty long. And it'd be
if you
awesome
don't use
if
the backlight, you read it's
had
80
like
hours.
AI a little bit in the
to ambient light
what's
sensor.
it called? Not to be too much clicking to put it up, put it on, put it up, put it on. But actually, is there any okay? That's a different. You don't have time for this. We can talk about it next time.
Yes, I'm happy to do another video. And just everybody, if you guys watch these videos, you might run into a gem that might result in you starting a company. And, you know, I'm obsessed with computers. I looked up to Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Alan Kay and Doug Engelbart and Ted Nelson and the Atari people. And I started the company at the Computer History Museum, but I started my research because of watching a Charbax video. So know somewhere deep on YouTube, you can find your next great idea to make a next great company. And who knows, maybe we become the next Apple. But we're going to try to make some awesome computers.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Charbax. Hi, who are you?
It's me.